Dai Lin became a surgeon in a strange hospital. Here, what is being treated is not disease, but various terrifying and mysterious curses. Do you think you might have hit evil spirits? Let's get a soul ultrasound or CT first. If you haven't been cursed yet, write a prescription and use the cursed item once in the morning and once in the evening to repel the evil that is entwined with you. If you are cursed or possessed by evil spirits, you will have to undergo surgery, and the doctor will remove the curse from your body. However, surgeons are the most dangerous, and every year some surgeons die on the operating table, being cursed and killed. And Dai Lin obtained a magical curse, a pair of demon eyes. His left eye can detect sensing and attacks, and his right eye can imprison seals and even devour and absorb them. The stronger the absorbed curse, the more powerful his medical skills become. And no one knows exactly who the most mysterious director of this hospital is. Keywords of the novel. For 44 Hospital without pop-ups, download the complete text of 444 Hospital, and read the latest chapters of 444 Hospital. Chapter 1. Late Night Hospitals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Late Night Hospitals. You have been selected by our Hospital 444 for the fourth quarter of this year's doctor recruitment. Our hospital is committed to treating all human curses caused by supernatural phenomena. Doctors recruited through the recruitment will become interns at our hospital and cannot be refused in any way. When Dai Lin received this text message, he had just woken up from a nightmare. In his dream, he found himself lying on an operating table. The shadowless lamp in front of me illuminated me. Subsequently, a pitch-black figure appeared in front of him, then picked up the surgical knife and extended it towards his own eyes. In his dream, he felt like the surgical knife really cut into his eyes. After waking up, he felt a faint pain in his eyes. As a clinical surgeon, he has undergone countless surgeries, but it is the first time he has felt the feeling of lying on the operating table. Then, he received the text message on his phone placed by the bedside. Without any hesitation, he deleted the text message. Curse for treating human supernatural phenomena. What kind of junk online game advertisement is this? However, this dream is too real. Dai Lin is currently lying on the bed in the doctor's lounge at the hospital, preparing to recover and prepare for tonight's surgery. At this point, the discomfort in the eyes becomes increasingly intense. He is not an ophthalmologist and it is difficult to determine the symptoms at once. I hope it won't affect the next surgery. Late at night. The 9th Hospital of W City. The door of the operating room was finally pushed open, and the patient who was still under anesthesia was pushed out. Dragging his tired body, Dai Lin walked out wearing a mask. "Doctor, how are you doing?" The family members waiting outside the operating room quickly walked up to ask. "The surgery went smoothly overall, but we still need to be hospitalized for observation," Dai Lin said, moving his lips. Before the surgery, he went to the ophthalmology department of the hospital for a check-up and confirmed that there were no issues. In addition, he did not experience any discomfort afterwards, so he decided to follow the original plan for the surgery. After all, he was the only surgical expert in the entire hospital who dared to perform this surgery, and even his mentor was quite hesitant. "Doctor, thank you, thank you." Upon hearing that the surgery was going smoothly, the family members, who had been tense all along, suddenly collapsed and grabbed Dai Lin's hand tightly. The family knew before that this was a very difficult surgery, and the probability of the patient dying on the operating table was very high. Although Dai Lin was a bit tired at this moment, looking at the gratitude of his family, his heart was filled with the joy of saving a life from the hand of death. The nurses who came out of the operating room watched this scene and argued, "It's truly Dr. Dai. Such a difficult surgery. Surprisingly, he could do it well. That's the youngest deputy chief physician in the history of our hospital. The location of this tumor is quite unfavorable, and most surgeons dare not do it for fear of accidents. Dr. Dai is truly fearsome. He was admitted to medical school at the age of 16 when he jumped the grade, and this year he is newly appointed as the deputy chief physician. He is really young and ambitious. Who said it's not true? Dr. Dai was the first to take the lead in registering for the earthquake relief work back then. Dr. Dai is really young and promising. He can perform surgeries like this before the age of 30. I heard that the hospital wants to cultivate him well and let him give a presentation on foreign medical forums. Ah, but Dr. Dai's eyes are not feeling well today. I heard from the ophthalmologist that Dr. Dai went there this afternoon to see and make sure everything was normal without affecting the surgery, so he felt at ease. Probably because I've been too busy lately, I've been using my eyes too much, haven't I? Hospitalization Department. Tonight is Dai Lin's duty day. He was looking at the computer screen in front of him, reviewing various examination reports of several patients who had just undergone surgery in the hospital this month, and evaluating their prognosis and treatment. Not long after the surgery, the strange sensation in both eyes returned. This caused Dai Lin to feel increasingly uncomfortable in both eyes, especially in the position of the pupils, and the piercing sensation became stronger and stronger. He picked up the eye drops on the side and dripped them a few more times. Dr. Dai. Dr. Zhao beside him asked, "Are your eyes still uncomfortable?" What did the ophthalmologist say? I have already gone to the ophthalmology department for examination, and have also undergone slit lamp and ultrasound examination of the eyes. The crystalline retina is normal. Dr. Lin said there is no obvious problem, but it may be due to fatigue caused by excessive eye use recently. So he asked me to drip eye drops for a few days first. You've probably been working too hard lately, haven't you? After this surgery, why don't you take a leave first? Maybe I've been a bit tired lately, but it's not a big problem. The postoperative signs of several patients have been unstable recently, especially today's patient. Although the tumor has been successfully removed, postoperative observation is still necessary to evaluate the prognosis. I'll just get through this period of time before resting, otherwise I won't be able to rest at ease. Dr. Zhao sighed slightly and said, "Who wouldn't know that you are the most skilled surgeon in our hospital? After all this work, you should prepare that paper on lung tumors well. As long as it can be published in authoritative medical journals, you must be the chief physician. In a few years, you will be the surgical director of our hospital." Dai Lin said, "I still want to accumulate enough clinical experience so that it complements scientific research and I have more confidence in writing papers in the future. I am still too young and have a lot to learn." Dr. Dai. Today's surgery is actually very dangerous. If there is a slight mistake, the patient's family members may not think of you as good, but may think that without surgery, the patient may live longer. Are you really not afraid? I remember taking the oath when I was in medical school, as a doctor. Speaking of this, Dai Lin's eyes felt an unprecedented sharp pain, unable to open them at all. After a while, the abnormality in his eyes gradually disappeared. When he opened it again, Dai Lin felt that his eyes were seeing very clearly, and he didn't feel uncomfortable looking at the computer screen anymore, as if he had changed his eyes. He was momentarily shocked by this situation. "Dr. Dai, are you okay?" Dr. Zhao asked anxiously. "No, it's okay." "Okay. I'll go check the room first. If your eyes still don't improve, go to the ophthalmology hospital to have a look. Our ophthalmology department doesn't have the authority over there." "Oh, I'll put my phone here for charging. If you need to contact me, you can call the nurse station on the 8th floor." "Well, good." Dr. Zhao. After Dr. Zhao left, there is only Dai Lin left in the office. He looked ahead in surprise and then realized that even in such a dim room, he could clearly see a fly parked on a table in the distance. Dai. Dr. Forrest. At this moment, Dai Lin heard an elderly voice and immediately lifted his head. He saw an old man standing at the door wearing a hospital uniform, with a bald head and a stumbling gait. When the old man opened his mouth, he saw that his teeth had almost all fallen out and he couldn't speak clearly. Dai Lin immediately recognized that this was a patient from room 413, surnamed Zhang, who is currently undergoing radiation and chemotherapy in the hospital and his condition is very unstable. "Grandpa Zhang, you can't leave the ward at will." Dai Lin suddenly thought to himself, where has the on-duty nurse from the inpatient department gone? Let such critically ill elderly patients walk alone. Grandpa Zhang continued to speak incoherently, Dr. Forrest, I'm looking for me. Son. Dai Lin remembers that after the patient was hospitalized, his son only came to see him once and there was no trace of him since then. The elderly person is getting older. They just underwent surgery last year and are undergoing chemotherapy and radiation therapy, so they may have lost their consciousness. Grandpa Zhang, your son is not here. I'll have a nurse take you back. Dai Lin stood up and was about to walk over when Grandpa Zhang said, then. I go somewhere else. To find. Then, Grandpa Zhang turned around and walked out of the office. Dai Lin quickly walked out, but upon closer inspection, Grandpa Zhang's figure was no longer outside. This makes Dai Lin feel very strange. The old man is so old, and he walked slowly just now. Why did he disappear in the blink of an eye? Dai Lin ran around to search for Grandpa Zhang, but still couldn't see him. Dai Lin became increasingly worried and immediately went to the nearby nurse station, saying, notify the nurse station on the 4th floor that there is a patient in room 413 who has left the ward. The male patient should be around 70 years old, and let them go and look for him. Looking at the patient, if they accidentally fall, the consequences would be unimaginable. If it weren't for the necessity of having a doctor on duty in the office, Dai Lin would also want to go find the patient together. Not long after returning to the office, the phone on his desk rang. Hello. Hello, Dr. Dai, I am a nurse from the 4th floor nurse station. We just checked and found that patients in room 413 are sleeping normally and no one has escaped. What? Dai Lin felt increasingly strange. Did you go back so soon? Somehow, it reminded him of that strange text message. Are you sure? Sure. The patient you mentioned is currently lying down well. Dai Lin breathed a sigh of relief and just went back. Then, he sat at his desk and continued to check the patient information on the computer. I don't know how long it has been, Dai. Dr. Forrest. The familiar voice rang out again. Dai Lin suddenly raised his head and saw that Grandpa Zhang was standing at the door again. He was momentarily stunned. Why did the people at the 4th floor nurse station let him run up again? Dr. Forrest, I'm looking for my son. Son. The tone of voice is exactly the same as before, and even the punctuation when speaking is completely consistent, without any difference. At this moment, Dai Lin felt that his eyes began to feel slightly uncomfortable. At the same time, his gaze swept towards the old man. The old man's standing posture is exactly the same as before, even his expression and manner are the same. Dai Lin himself was also surprised by his amazing memory. Vaguely. He felt it was related to the changes in his eyes. Later, he discovered another thing. Grandpa Zhang's standing position at this moment is different from before. Compared to just now, he is standing 1 meter closer. Then, without a word, he looked at Grandpa Zhang like this. Next Grandpa Zhang slowly spoke up. Then. I go somewhere else. Find. The exact same words as before. The stuttering of broken sentences is also completely consistent. Dai Lin slowly stood up and walked outside the office, looking around. There is no one in the corridor. A strong unease swept over his heart. He returned to his desk, quickly grabbed the phone and dialed the nurse station on the 4th floor. Sorry, could you please check ward 413 again? This time, make sure to check if it's the patient himself. He just came to me again. As a doctor, Dai Lin had some absurd imagination in his mind at this moment. Soon, the nurse's reply came. Dr. Dai, the patient is still in the ward. How about this? I'll find a nurse to watch the ward outside. Excuse me. After Dai Lin hung up the phone, he only felt a chill on his back. This is the 10th floor. Even if you sprint at full speed from here, it's impossible to run back to the hospital room so quickly, let alone an elderly person who can't walk steadily on the road. If you continue to stay here, will he come back again? Dai Lin also noticed that from where the old man was standing just now, just 1 more meter away will bring him to his desk. Look at the other desk. Dr. Zhao's phone in the inpatient department is being placed there for charging. He himself should be going for a ward round now. Dai Lin took a deep breath. He took his own phone and called Dr. Zhao's phone. After Dr. Zhao's phone rang, he walked over and connected it. Then, he picked up his phone, closed the office door, and quickly arrived at the corner of the corridor next to him. There is no access to stairs or elevators here. He picked up his phone and stuck it to his ear, always maintaining a call status. His heart kept beating wildly, and at the same time, his eyes began to ache even more faintly. Finally, Dr. Forrest. On the other end of the phone, an incredibly clear sound came from. And now, I am not in the office. Dr. Forrest, I'm looking for my son. The sound is getting closer and closer. You should know that Dai Lin is no longer in the office, but what he said is still no different from what he said just now. Then, I go somewhere else. Find. The tone of the voice gradually became gloomy. Dai Lin felt like taking a deep breath of air conditioning. The supernatural curse is that text message. Really true. He immediately hung up his phone and ran towards the location of the escape ladder. Now, our patient still lying in the hospital bed. At this moment, behind me, footsteps could be heard. The footsteps sounded slow, but the sound was getting closer and closer. My son. What about my son? The key is. No matter how Dai Lin runs, he can't even reach the location of the escape ladder. Finally he felt like he was being tightly grabbed by both hands at the back of his neck. Then he could no longer move forward, his face being forcefully turned back bit by bit. Dai Lin's strong will to survive reached its peak in this instant. At the same time, as his eyes suddenly widened, he felt as if 2 huge and profound spaces had exploded in his mind. My eyes turned into 2 huge black holes, generating a strong attraction. New book release. Please provide more support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Recruitment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Recruitment. Subsequently in this corridor, only Dai Lin is left. But on his neck, there were only 2 left, half-transparent broken palms gripping his neck. That ghost escaped. Then, the semi-transparent palm completely disappeared. Dai Lin clearly saw in his mind that those 2 severed palms appeared in the deep space on the right. This seems to be inside his right eye. These 2 palms are in his eyes, it's too scary. Can you get rid of them? With his thoughts, those 2 severed palms slowly dissipated inside his right eye, as if food was being broken down by stomach acid in his stomach. Subsequently, more information came to his mind. Has this severed palm been absorbed by him? And the information he obtained was immediately after, Dai Lin's body gradually disappeared. In a pure white room. 3 people sat behind a table. In front of the table, there are about a dozen empty chairs. Those 3 people are all wearing doctors' white coats. Sitting in the middle was a young and handsome man. Next to the man, there is a man and a woman. The young and handsome man said, since the curse of these eyes was implanted into the applicant by the dean, no one has survived the recruitment process. This person definitely has amazing potential and talent. Talent is just talent, said the woman beside him. It all depends on his nature. At this moment, a person appeared little by little on a chair in front of me. Impressive, it's Dai Lin. Congratulations, Dr. Dai Lin. Dai Lin was surprisingly calm at this moment and asked, "Who are you?" The young man replied, "First of all, I want to explain two things to you. First, you have already passed the recruitment at our 444 hospital, and you are the only one who survived this quarter's recruitment. From now on, you will be our intern doctor. Whether you are willing or not, you cannot disobey us, just as we were also selected back then. Second, I hope you do not hate us, because we, like you, received that text message and went through this terrible recruitment to come to this hospital." Dai Lin looked surprised, and his brain couldn't understand what the young man was saying for a moment. If I understand correctly, all my experiences just now were recruitment. I personally feel very sorry about this. If it were up to me to choose, I would never use such inhumane methods to recruit doctors. But these are all regulations of the hospital director, and I am powerless to intervene. I understand your current feelings very well, and I used to sit in this chair like you back then. The man's eloquence is very good. In just a few words, he brought the unequal status of both sides to the same position. But Dai Lin is not a fool, where can he be so easily fooled? He didn't relax his guard at all, he just wanted to know what the other party really wanted to do. Let him become a doctor here. This obviously cannot be a legitimate hospital. And at this moment, he remembered the text message that said, "This hospital treats patients who have been cursed by supernatural beings." Now, let me introduce myself. The young man was not surprised by Dai Lin's warning expression, and continued, "My name is Yin Wuqi. I am the deputy director of this 444 hospital, and I am responsible for personnel management. Although that is the case, the specific selection of recruitment personnel is determined by the director. So, if you ask us why we chose you, I cannot answer, only the director knows." Dai Lin observed that the pure white room was about 70 square meters, but there were no doors or windows at all. The blank chairs around, from the perspective of the only, without any gaps, should be for other people who were originally recruited to sit on. But now, he is the only one. The three people in front of me, besides Yin Wuxia, also have a man and a woman. The other man is a strong and powerful-looking man, while the woman is a very charming and cold-looking woman. There is no escape route, and the opponent has more people than him. Looking at the physique of that strong man, if he wants to use force, it is obvious that he is at a disadvantage. Moreover, this is clearly not an ordinary kidnapping. He clearly felt that he had not been unconscious for long, and it was not the technology that humans can possess to make him move here in an instant. As a doctor, he is also well aware that there cannot be such exaggerated hypnosis in novels and movies. Fortunately, the other party's current intention is to let him work in this hospital without asking for any money from him, nor intending to cause personal harm to him. There is no need to lie to him anymore as there is such a huge gap in strength between the two sides. Simply put, Dai Lin sorted out the current situation and said, "I have to work here in the future, right? Then, your hospital treats patients who have been cursed by supernatural beings. Are you the kind of exorcists like those in movies?" When he said this, Dai Lin also felt extremely absurd, but the combination of these experiences was enough to completely shatter the materialistic education he received from childhood to adulthood. However, as a clinical doctor who has always valued cases more than theory, his acceptance of abnormal things is much higher than that of ordinary people, just like how he often encounters clinical cases that completely contradict book theory, which can give him new cognitive subversion. On the contrary, Yin Wumiao's face was taken aback. He seemed to have never thought that Dai Lin did not shout or intend to violently resist. "Not bad, but we don't have that much divine power." At this moment, the charming female doctor said, "Actually, each of us, like you, is forced to wear a white coat. We have no means to kill ghosts, at most we can only rely on planting curses. Like your eyes, to barely balance them. The so-called curses are implanted curses. Only the curses of ghosts can we possibly deal with them. Is using poison to fight poison. Dai Lin accepted these words that should only appear in movies and games to rebuild his completely subverted worldview. Even so, when facing ghosts, we are still at a disadvantage in all aspects. Upon hearing that Dai Lin was completely at a disadvantage, it made Dai Lin's heart skip a beat. At the job fair, it was said that way. How cool is this trend? Dr. Gao, please show Dr. Dai the contract. The charming and cold-looking female doctor stood up, picked up a stack of paper, and came to Dai Lin. This is the internship contract for our hospital, said the female doctor. Could you please sign it? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Onboarding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Onboarding. Dai Lin took over the contract and began to carefully examine it. He looked at it quite seriously, and Yin Wuxia was also very patient and did not urge this. However, Dai Lin's face became increasingly ugly as he looked at it. This. The female doctor's reaction to him was as expected, saying, "When I first signed the contract back then, my reaction was the same as yours now. That's right, working in our hospital is very dangerous. Especially as a surgeon." Upon seeing the last page of the contract, Dai Lin raised his hand and stroked his chin a few times. "May I ask? Do I have to sign?" If you refuse, the female doctor seemed to have been waiting for him to ask this question for a long time, quickly answering, "We can only let you lie down in the morgue of our hospital. I declare first that this is not a threat. I asked the same question as you back then, and I have seen firsthand what happens to people who refuse to sign contracts. We are all slaves of the dean, and as long as the dean is willing, we can kill any doctor in this hospital at any time. Is the dean also recruited? It's best for you not to worry about the dean's affairs. You just need to remember one thing, the dean is like a demon to us, and we have no possibility of resisting him." Yin Wukue reminded, "Dr. Dai, at the latest. Let me check the time. Before midnight, there isn't much time left. If you don't sign this contract before then." Well, what Dr. Gao said earlier may sound a bit harsh, but it's true. The female doctor surnamed Gao looked at Yin Wuqing and said, "No matter how well you say it, death is still death and there will be no change." From beginning to end, the burly doctor didn't say a word. Dai Lin noticed that when it came to the dean, Yin Wuqi's always friendly gaze changed, his expression became extremely stern, and his tone became less polite. This doesn't seem like acting. Moreover, when mentioning, there is absolutely no possibility of resisting him, Dai Lin noticed that Yin Wuqing's emphasis on the word absolutely no was emphasized. He felt that Yin Wuqing also deeply despised this so-called dean. "It's okay," Yin Wukue said. "Anyway, I don't have any surgeries today or tomorrow. I can stay here with you and wait. If Dr. Dai has doubts, he can consider it." Yin Wuxia's tone was very polite, but Dai Lin could hear the confidence in his tone. "Okay, I'll sign. Give me a pen." Dai Lin did not hesitate. From a legal perspective, the content of this contract has no binding force. So, it is probably more of a supernatural force, just like the contract between humans and demons in Western movies. However, in the current situation, Dai Lin has no choice. If he doesn't sign, he will have to bear the risk of death. To take a step back, there are also ways in front of him to force him to sign. He doesn't feel that the police and the law can pose any threat to the people in front of him. Since that's the case, why waste time? It's better to cooperate a bit and avoid suffering. Dr. Gao handed the pen to Dai Lin and flipped to the last page. Then, Dai Lin picked up a pen and signed his name at the position of Party B. starting from tomorrow. Yin Wumei looked at Dai Lin's signature and immediately looked good again. He said, Dr. Dai, you will temporarily follow Dr. Gao Heian for a rotating internship in the outpatient department of the grievance surgery department. Later, he stood up and walked up to Dai Lin. He reached out his hand and smiled, saying, Welcome to our hospital, Dr. Dai Lin. Dai Lin noticed that the vice dean's enthusiasm for himself seemed to exceed the leader's reaction to a normal candidate. On the contrary, he was somewhat cautious about this. Dai Lin knew that the current situation was stronger than others, so he chose to bow his head first, and then act accordingly. So he also held on to the hand of Yin Wuxiao. This is your doctor's lounge. Dai Lin looked at the spacious doctor's lounge in front of him and was very surprised. Is this a place for an intern doctor to live? And outside the window inside the room it is an incredibly deep and boundless darkness. Behind him, the previously silent and strong doctor said, the previous batch of interns in the hospital have basically become full-time, so you are currently living here alone. You have just signed the internship contract, so you can go back to your original work handover or arrange some other trivial matters. You will start working tomorrow afternoon, and you are on duty every day on weekdays, so you need to stay in the hospital and can only go home on weekends. After signing the contract, you only need to move your mind, and your body can freely shuttle between the real world and the hospital space, but each time can only reach the location of the previous space shuttle. After walking out of the interview room, which had a hidden door that only the vice dean could open, the vice dean arranged for the strong man to bring Dai Lin to the intern's lounge. The doctor remained quite silent from beginning to end, and now he is speaking for the first time. Dai Lin nodded and said to the strong man, May I ask? How do I address you? Huoping, Dr. Li Gui surgeon, Dr. Gao Heian, who is responsible for taking you on an internship, is the attending physician of grievance surgery. Among our departments, except for the emergency department, the ones that are currently most in need are grievance and Li Gui surgery. After your department rotates, you will be assigned a department based on your overall performance. Previously, recruitment was only done by the department head, but recently the director has been too busy, so let's take care of it. Vice Dean Yin values you very much and hopes that you will do well here. If you don't make progress, it means you are close to death. By the way, there is a detailed introduction to the hospital and the rules for medical students in the rest room. It's best for you to take a look as soon as possible. Okay, I got it. After Huoping left, Dai Lin found the hospital introduction and doctor's rules in the rest room and read them in detail. After reading, he stood still, thinking of returning to the real world in his mind. So. He immediately noticed that the scenery in front of him instantly changed to the corridor of the 9th hospital before him. Coming back. Now, Dai Lin truly realized how terrifying that 444 hospital was. All of this seemed like a distant world, but he knew that it was not an illusion. This night was really long. Not long after, the phone rang. Previously, Dai Lin noticed that after entering the hospital, his phone completely shut down and could not be opened. Yin Wukue told him that it is not possible to use mobile phones within the hospital. Doctors below the attending physician can only use internal walkie-talkies and can only use dedicated mobile phones within the hospital after being promoted to attending physician. Dr. Dai, where did you go exactly? The caller was Dr. Zhao. Listen to me, and then we carefully checked. The patient you mentioned passed away last night. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Eye of the Demon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Eye of the Demon. Although Dai Lin had anticipated this possibility for a long time, he still felt a tightness in his heart when he heard this. That's really. It's a ghost. When I asked the nurses to go round the room yesterday, they said everything was normal. Yeah, we also find it strange. The doctor who conducted the ward round couldn't figure it out. Judging from the condition of the body, it was indeed dead during the ward round. Dai Lin suddenly understood this as the handwriting of the Dean. Undoubtedly, it is known as a divine and demonic existence. Dai Lin gritted his teeth and said, Dr. Zhao, I'm planning to resign. Ah. Dr. Dai, did I hear you right? I have to leave this month. I have to trouble you to cancel the outpatient appointment. Dr. Dai, you're not planning to go out and start your own business, are you? To be honest, I will write my resignation report immediately. After dawn, Dai Lin drafted a resignation report and handed it over to the bewildered department head before returning home. No matter how much the hospital people try to persuade him to stay, he cannot stay. Although Dai Lin is a local of W City, he lives alone. After being admitted to medical school, he never received any more money from his family and has been living alone outside. His parents live with his high school brother. After arriving home, he briefly washed up and set the alarm. As soon as he lay in bed and touched the pillow, he immediately fell asleep. When I woke up, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. He immediately went to the bathroom to take a shower, rinsing while contemplating the next steps. According to the rules of the contract, the consequence of breach of contract is death. He must strictly abide by the hospital's doctor's rules, otherwise the cost will be his life. Dai Lin doesn't want to use his own life to test this incredible supernatural power. The key now is to be able to successfully control the curse implanted in him by the hospital, which is these eyes. As Yin Wuqi said, ghosts cannot be killed and can only be restrained to a certain extent with curses. And doctors can only treat patients through this means. And most doctors, when faced with ghosts, are at a disadvantage. The top doctors often feel helpless in the face of the most terrifying ghosts. The strength of a doctor's medical skills is closely related to the curse. So, Dai Lin needs to find a way to develop the ability of these eyes. No matter what kind of doctor he is, he will spare no effort to improve his medical skills. In the past, medical skills only represented the ability to save more patients, but now, medical skills also represent the doctor's ability to save lives. And he felt that after devouring those ghostly hands, his eyes also gained new abilities from it. He looked at the shower gel in the shower and widened his right eye. Immediately afterwards, he saw several fingers emerging from behind the shower gel. At the same time, Dai Lin felt rapid breathing and his entire brain seemed to be tearing apart. At the same time, that finger also made him feel a strong threat, and a slight mistake could potentially backfire on him. He immediately narrowed his eyes, and then quickly retracted his finger. The abnormality in the body has also been completely eliminated. Sure enough, I really absorbed some of the ghost's abilities. However, this is clearly not an easy-to-control ability and places a considerable burden on the body. After taking a shower, Dai Lin felt much better. Next, he began to take out a notebook and record all the clues he had obtained so far. Firstly, he must understand whether the changes in these eyes are harmful to his body and go to a professional ophthalmic hospital for further examination. Then, it is impossible for him to believe everything that Yin Wucheng and others say. This group of people must have supernatural abilities, but whether that contract can really control his life and death, he must find a way to confirm, otherwise he will be completely held in the hands of those people. He once tried to bring out the things inside the hospital, but after teleportation, he realized that apart from the dozen business cards handed to him by Dr. Gao, he couldn't even bring out a single piece of paper. It seems that either it is impossible to bring things out, or bringing things out is not possible with his abilities. After taking notes, Dai Lin placed his pen on the 3 words, contract, on the note. A typical contract will have a breach clause, which is nothing more than paying a penalty for breach of contract. But this contract is different, the cost of breach is just one word, death. And generally, contracts are made in duplicate, but this contract only has one copy. Even life and death can be manipulated and controlled, and this hospital definitely has the ability to make him die. But Dai Lin was unwilling to accept that his life was manipulated by someone. The various terms of the contract are very strict and it is difficult to find loopholes. Dai Lin still remembers the terms of the contract clearly. The key is that the hospital has the ultimate right to interpret the contract terms. Dai Lin finally decided to act opportunistically and paid the landlord this month's rent, stating that he wanted to terminate it. He was admitted to the position of deputy chief physician at a young age, but now he has become an intern doctor. During the internship, I have to be on duty all the time, so it is obviously impossible to rent a house all the time, especially since I rented this house purely because it was very close to the hospital. Then, he started browsing the internet and searching for life insurance. Next, he went to a life insurance company and consulted about a cost-effective personal safety insurance. This job is much more dangerous than an ordinary doctor, so he wants to be on the safe side. After the consultation, Dai Lin walked out of the insurance company's door. At this moment, he noticed a woman with a worried expression and anxious eyes. At this moment, Dai Lin suddenly felt a strong pain in his left eye. The woman walked past him, but due to confusion, she unexpectedly bumped into Dai Lin. "I'm sorry." The woman quickly waved her hand and apologized. "It's okay," Dai Lin waved his hand and looked at the woman. The woman has a beautiful and dignified appearance, a tall figure, but at this time her cheeks are sunken and her eyes are full of fear. "Sir." After Dai Lin took out a job fair, Dr. Gao handed her a business card and said, "If there is a need, come here." The woman was stunned and took the business card. Because Dai Lin came out of an insurance company, she instinctively thought it should be the business card of an insurance company employee. After Dai Lin left, she picked up her business card and looked at it, but was stunned. "What is this? What is this?" On the crimson business card, there is a pitch-black skull, and above the skull, there is a black cross. Below is a line of words. Dr. Gao Heian, attending physician of the complaint department at Hospital 444. She looked up and suddenly realized the street outside the insurance company, which used to be crowded with people, suddenly became unusually deserted. Occasionally, only 2 or 3 people passed by. Again. Here it is. Her face suddenly became very ugly. During the new book period, there were only about 2,000 words per night. Please understand. This book is very important to me and a crucial step towards my transformation. It draws lessons from the expansion of combat power in the later stages of Hell cinema, balancing spells and ghosts, and allowing the protagonist to gradually gain strength without affecting their sense of terror. This book won't kill the female lead, won't add any private goods, won't delve into the entertainment industry, and won't have any history or political plot. Please rest assured to collect it. Seeking recommendation, seeking collection. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Outpatient Clinic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 6. Registration and Ambulance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Registration and Ambulance. On the business card, there is a small line of text below, Hospital 444. Holders of this business card can call the phone number 4444444 to register and make appointments. If they do not hold the business card, it will display as an empty number. She was holding on to the business card tightly at this moment, using it as her last straw. Then, trembling, she held her phone and quickly dialed the number. The phone only rang twice and then got through. A sound came from inside. Hospital 444. Outpatient Department. The voice was calm and didn't reveal much emotional color. She flipped her business card over to the back and looked at the densely packed small characters on it, saying, "My name is Lin Yan. Can I get the outpatient number of Dr. Gao Heian from the Complaints Spirit Department? I have her business card, which says that you can directly call the hospital's phone to register." "Sure, Dr. Gao happens to have a night clinic tonight." Subsequently, the voice continued, the diagnosis fee is 30 spiritual therapy points. Deductions within 100 spiritual therapy points only require the patient's verbal consent. If you agree, the fee will be deducted immediately, and our hospital will send a dedicated car to pick you up and take you to the hospital. What is a spiritual healing point? For your future life, of course, the overall evaluation score is based on the premise of not encountering supernatural phenomena. The specific evaluation system is determined by the dean. You can also have your family members pay for it. If you cannot make a decision immediately, you can consider it first and then call this phone number. What about the paid spiritual therapy points? It can cause you to randomly lose something in your future life. Perhaps it's losing a career promotion, the love of a loved one, the realization of a dream, the acquisition of a certain asset, or even the birth of a child. Lin Yen looked around, gritted her teeth, and said, "Okay, I agree." Just as I finished speaking, the phone hung up directly. In an instant, Lin Yen suddenly heard a sound and a beam of light shone over. She turned around and was shocked to find that an ambulance was coming straight towards her. Then, Lin Yen realized that she was actually sitting in an ambulance. There are no other people in the car, and there is no one driving in front. The speed of the ambulance was terrifying, and the scenery outside the window quickly retreated. In the blink of an eye, she could no longer see any vehicles or pedestrians outside, but gradually turned into a deep darkness. Lin Yan's eyes were wide open, and soon she realized something was wrong because the ambulance didn't make a single turn and kept moving straight. Following the terrain around the square, this was simply impossible. I don't know how long it has been. The ambulance finally stopped. The car door slowly opens. Outside. It turned out to be pure white, completely opposite to pitch black. Lin Yen walked down. Then Lin Yen discovered that she was standing on a white hospital corridor. Lin Yen turned around and saw that the ambulance had disappeared without a trace. She looked around with strong composure. This corridor is pure white everywhere, with floors and walls as if freshly waxed, clean enough to reflect human reflection, as if in a sterile environment. Lin Yan's eyes immediately turned to a nursing table ahead, which had a sign of "Grievance Department" in front of it. She walked step by step towards the nurse station, where two nurses were sitting upright. These two nurses, one tall and thin, and the other with round faces, both have extremely pale faces, deeply sunken eyes, and no signs of expression. Their bodies exude a feeling of sinister energy. She asked nervously, "Please. May I ask if this is Hospital 444, the Department of Complaints and Spiritual Health?" The round-faced nurse nodded indifferently. "Yes, it's like this. My name is Lin Yen, and I just called to register." The tall nurse looked at the computer screen and said, "Miss Lin, please show me your ID card." "Here." After taking the ID card from Lin Yan's hand, the tall nurse tapped the computer screen in front of her a few times. Lin Yan was shocked. She just made a phone call. Can they confirm their identity through their ID card? Visit number 4, Lin Yan, complaining about the Department of Psychiatry. Go there and look at the big screen, and you will call the number. Also, I know you must have a lot of questions right now. I can only say that everything you see on your business card is true. Besides, I won't answer any of your questions. After the tall nurse handed over her ID card, Lin Yen looked up at her and said, "I don't think it's possible to use a medical insurance card here, right? Miss, you are very humorous." Lin Yen felt like she had asked an idiot a question. Subsequently, Lin Yen followed the nurse's guidance and walked towards the left side of the corridor. There is a spacious waiting hall, but the lighting is relatively dim. On rows of benches, only 2 people were sitting. One is an old lady wearing simple white hair, and the other is a middle-aged man wearing glasses. Lin Yen sat next to the middle-aged man. Upon closer inspection, the middle-aged man was quite haggard, with sunken cheeks and lifeless gaze, with red blood streaks around his eyes. New patient. The middle-aged man glanced at Lin Yen and said, "Are you still here for a follow-up visit?" "The first time." "Come." Lin Yen took a deep breath and said, "This place is really... well, it can be treated." "Yes," the middle-aged man said, "I didn't believe it before. Our problem can only be treated at this hospital." The old woman not far away felt uneasy and stood up from time to time, saying, "When exactly did you come out? That thing was still at my doorstep before, and today. Tonight. It has climbed up to my bed. I need to see a doctor quickly. I knew I had called the emergency department long ago." At this moment, the outpatient room door in front of me was opened, and a woman with double ponytails walked out. Subsequently, the words, "Chen X month on the 2nd, appeared on the large screen. Then, the old woman rushed forward with a swift step and walked into the outpatient room. As the girl with a ponytail walked past Lin Yen, she turned her head and asked, "Excuse me. Your treatment has already ended." The girl was stunned for a moment, looked at Lin Yen, and said, The doctor gave me a prescription, and I need to go and pay the fee now." Prescription notes. "Mind if I ask?" "Sorry, I'm in a hurry." The girl's face was filled with fear. After quickly saying these words, she turned around and walked away quickly. The middle-aged man sighed and said, "Judging from her appearance, her condition is not mild. I am a bit lucky, and these few follow-up visits have all been good. Why did you first come here for treatment?" "That was 2 months ago." The middle-aged man seemed to want to find someone to confide in and said to Lin Yen, "At that time, I saw a young man being beaten up by a group of people with my own eyes. The young man asked me for help at that time, but I didn't dare, and didn't even have the courage to report to the police, so I ran away. Then, the young man was beaten to death by someone. I will never forget the look in his eyes when he asked me for help at that time. Now, thinking about it, I really regret it." Lin Yen usually pays close attention to the news. She doesn't remember a case like this in W City 2 months ago. Upon reflection, it seems that the accent of a middle-aged man is not from W City. Then about a month later, I started to encounter strange things frequently. Every time I came home, I felt like someone was following me. But every time I turned around, there was no one behind me. Upon hearing this, Lin Yen instinctively said, "Yes. I am the same." Then, one time my son took a photo of me. In the photo, I saw someone standing not far behind me, and surprisingly, it was that young man. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Women Without Eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Women Without Eyes. The middle-aged man's body still couldn't stop trembling when he said this. I was very scared at the time, and one day, I found a business card in my wallet. However, I have never received this business card, and I don't know how it got into my wallet. The business card of Hospital 444, right? Yes, I feel unbelievable. Then I called the phone above and hung up the clinic here. I showed the photos to the doctor, and she said, I came early and the situation is not serious. Afterwards, she prescribed a prescription for me to undergo a course of treatment first. After the course of treatment, she took photos, and he never appeared again. My situation is a bit more complicated. Lin Yen said, if I don't come again, maybe my life won't be safe. Then you came to the right place, said the middle-aged man. You said the doctor prescribed a prescription for you, but what kind of medicine is sold here? The middle-aged man replied, no, it's not medicine. As he was about to continue speaking, suddenly the outpatient room door opened in front of him, and the old lady walked out. His number appeared on the big screen. The middle-aged man stood up and said, I have to go first. Let me ask the last question. Lin Yen quickened her pace and said, why did you believe the content of that business card back then? The middle-aged man helped the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said, I don't know either. At that time, I just believed it. Sorry, I went in first. After watching the middle-aged man enter the outpatient room, Lin Yan remembered that when she first received the business card from the man who had just come out of the insurance company, her first reaction was inexplicably a sense of indescribable trust in the content on the card, completely ignoring the possibility of fraud. About 20 minutes later, her number was called on the big screen. The middle-aged man walked out, while she walked into the consultation room. The outpatient room is quite spacious and looks about 50 square meters. Gao Heian and Dai Lin sat in front of each other, with a computer on the table. On the right side of the outpatient room, there is a bed clearly designed for patients to lie down for examination. Lin Yan immediately recognized Dai Lin at a glance. Hello. Please sit down, Miss Lin. Gao Heian handed her a glass of water, and her usually cold face became much more amiable. Are you Dr. Gao Heian? Lin Yan originally thought the name was more like a woman. Not bad. May I ask, what kind of supernatural event did you encounter? Upon hearing the 4 words, supernatural event, Lin Yan immediately said, Can you really help me? Please rest assured that Hospital 444 can be responsible for receiving all patients who encounter supernatural phenomena such as supernatural beings and curses. Lin Yan felt incredulous, but this hospital seemed to have some kind of magic that made her believe everything. Under the kind words of Gao Heian, Lin Yan gradually let go of her guard and spoke quietly, If we had to talk about all of this, it could be traced back to when I was 7 years old. At that time, my parents drove me camping in Suyuan Mountain in the suburbs. Then, that night, the car broke down in the mountains. Gao Heian gave Dai Lin a wink, who nodded and opened a clinic manual in front of her. She listened to Lin Yan recounting her medical history and picked up a pen to start recording. At that time, my parents were checking the vehicles. When I was idle and bored, I leaned under the car to take a look. Then, I saw a... Speaking of which, Lin Yan paused. Her hands intertwined together, clenching tighter and tighter. Even after so many years, that experience still left him with lingering fear. She picked up the water that Gao Heian had brought to her and took a sip. Don't worry, just speak up boldly. Thank you. Lin Yan slowly regained her composure and continued, I saw a woman covered in blood lying on the ground. Her face was very pale, and her eyes had only one eye white, and she couldn't see any pupils. At that time, I was very scared and immediately called my parents to come and see. But when they came to look, there was no one under the car. At that time, my parents were on both sides of the car, and if that woman got out of the car, they wouldn't have noticed. They all felt that I was deliberately trying to scare them. No matter how I explained it, it was useless. Afterwards, I started to feel scared. Although the car was repaired later, my outing ended prematurely due to my persistence. But on the day I returned to the city, my dad was driving, and my mom and I were both asleep in the back seat of the car. Suddenly, there was a jolt, and I woke up. Then, from the rearview mirror of the car, I saw that the mother who was supposed to be sitting next to me had turned into the woman covered in blood. And when I looked to the side, my mom disappeared. Upon hearing this, Dai Lin lifted his head and glanced at Lin Yan. And then what? In contrast, Gao Heian remained calm and continued to ask. Later on, I realized that at the moment I woke up, the car was moving exactly where it had broken down. Gao Heian suddenly asked, have the police investigated after the accident? Has anyone died there before? This is crucial, as almost every patient would ask this question. No, I also investigated later and no such incidents have occurred. You keep talking. My mother was eventually declared dead due to missing beyond the legal time limit. Later on that day every year, my father would go to the place where the accident occurred. But he was afraid that I would be affected by the situation and never took me there. But 1 year, after he went there, he never came back. Upon hearing this, Gao Heian asked, "So your father has been here ever since?" "Yes, the whereabouts are unknown." "Afterwards?" "What?" "I have always refused to believe that my parents are dead. I have been searching for them for years, but have found nothing." Lin Yan secretly clenched his fist. "A week ago, while staying at home, someone suddenly rang the doorbell outside. I went to look at the cat's eyes, but found that the woman I saw without pupils was standing outside the door." Dai Lin felt somewhat incredulous. "After so many years, you still remember her appearance clearly?" "Yes, I also found it unbelievable afterwards. And my first reaction at the time was that after my parents were taken away by her, she came to find me. I could only guard the door with a weapon, but the doorbell only lasted for less than a few seconds before it disappeared. Then I looked at the cat's eye again and she disappeared." "Did she only appear this time?" Gao Heian asked after her afterwards. "I didn't dare to stay at home anymore. Instead, I went to my workplace and asked for a safety talisman at the temple. However, starting from last night, I always felt like someone was following me when I walked, and I often heard footsteps faintly." Dai Lin continued to quickly record her medical history in the outpatient manual. "Next, I found that I always inexplicably walk to some particularly quiet places, and even if I go to lively places, they will immediately become deserted." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Hospitalization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Hospitalization. Lin Yan said this and instinctively glanced behind him before turning his head to continue speaking. "Later, I walked to the entrance of the insurance company and met this male doctor. He gave me your business card." Gao Heian looked at Dai Lin and asked, "Have you ever met before?" "Well," Dai Lin said, "I gave her your business card." A hint of surprise appeared on Gao Heian's face, and then he said to Lin Yan, "Miss Lin, first of all, let me make it clear to you that you can throw away any safety symbols. Choosing our hospital is the most correct approach. So, doctor, can you prescribe medicine for me? Traditional Chinese medicine? Western medicine? There is no medicine to treat supernatural phenomena." "Ah." But a patient outside said, "You have a prescription." What he said is not prescription medicine, but a curse. Of course, like medicine, there are both oral and external uses. However, 20 years. I'm not sure if this is still a complaint. Just listening to your description won't make a diagnosis. So, let me give you a rough examination first. Immediately afterwards, Gao Heian picked up a stethoscope and pressed the stethoscope head onto Lin Yan's chest. And Gao Heian, wearing a stethoscope, was first puzzled, then surprised, and then with a solemn expression. Dai Lin has been sitting in the outpatient department with Gao Heian all day today, and it's no wonder. For a long time, Gao Heian put down the stethoscope and set it aside. "How about it, doctor? Do we need further examination? The Lingxi department is now off work. Tomorrow, you need to go there for a check-up. Considering your urgent situation, I will immediately process your admission procedures. Are you going to be hospitalized now? So, is it safe to be here? That ghost can't come to me anymore." "I'm sorry, the hospital doesn't have the ability to isolate ghosts," Dai Lin said helplessly to her. "However, during your hospitalization, we will maximize your life safety." Gao Heian continued, "Our hospital will determine whether to perform surgery on you based on tomorrow's detailed examination. Hand. Surgery. Don't have too much mental burden for now. Although the curse needs to be removed, postoperative examination of the curse will be necessary to confirm the diagnosis. Cutting off the curse. Curse theory testing." Lin Yan listened to these words, feeling momentarily stunned. Dai Lin added, "Similar to pathological tests in general hospitals, this is the gold standard for diagnosis in Hospital 444. Gao Heian continued to explain, yes. We need to use a hospital-specific surgical knife to cut open your soul, completely remove the curse attached to you by the ghost, and then conduct a curse theory test. Not every ghost can kill a large number of people at will like in horror movies. To kill a person, a curse needs to be placed on it. In simple terms, it's like a virus gradually destroying the human immune system. And what kind of ghost curse needs to be cut off and sent to the curse center for testing in order to finally diagnose? The trouble with your situation now is that this ghost has already killed people 20 years ago, so it was already at least a vengeful spirit back then. For such a long time, I cannot guarantee whether you have become a ghost. If so, you will need to go to the ghost surgery and have them perform the surgery on you. Lin Yen quickly asked, soul cut open. Also, how can the curse come down? Does this thing also have a substance? Is it tricky to speak from a ghost? Gao Heian explained, we have a way to see and come into contact with the curse. But we can only remove it, but we cannot eliminate it. Only the center of the curse can seal it. As for the fierce ghost, don't think too much before it is diagnosed. As a doctor, I must tell you the worst case situation. That ghost. Why curse us? Just like being sick, being cursed often doesn't make any sense. You don't need to investigate the reason behind it. It can be certain that you and your parents haven't done anything wrong. Before the examination is done tomorrow, you should calm down. At least based on the situation from the previous hearing, it shouldn't be a bad ghost. Of course, I can't guarantee it. At this moment, Lin Yen asked a question she was very concerned about. Doctor, do you have magic and superpowers? Without hesitation, Gao Heian replied, many patients ask this question, and I can only say. We were originally ordinary people, and only through curses can we resist them. We cannot eliminate curses, nor can we kill ghosts. But rest assured, we have the ability to cure patients. Lin Yen continued to ask, do we need anesthesia for surgery? What is the difference between surgery and general surgery? Anesthesia is definitely necessary. Of course, our anesthesia department does not use ordinary anesthetic drugs. As for the surgical process, if you agree to the surgery, we will provide you with a detailed surgical consent form, which will inform you of the surgical details and related risks. Okay, then, let's arrange for my hospitalization first. But, what is the hospitalization cost? A regular ward deducts 90 spiritual therapy points per day, while an intensive care ward deducts 300 spiritual therapy points per day. Although hospitals cannot isolate ghosts, hospitalization can ensure your safety to the greatest extent possible. I currently cannot determine if you have been cursed by ghosts. If you stay in an intensive care ward, it will be safer. A deduction of 300 spiritual healing points per day. So, before and after surgery, you must be hospitalized for a while, right? Of course, we cannot kill the ghost, we can only remove the curse. We cannot guarantee how long we will be hospitalized. A deduction of 300 spiritual therapy points per day may not seem significant, but the patient is completely unaware of the value system of the spiritual therapy points, and they still have no idea what they will randomly lose in the future. Can a regular ward protect me? Based on my experience, it's not difficult to ensure your safety. Then, let's go to the regular ward. Okay, I'll help you handle the emergency admission. In front of the nurse's desk. The tall nurse saw that Gao Heian, Dai Lin, and Lin Yen walked over. Dr. Gao, have you finished work? Asked the tall nurse. Gao Heian nodded and said, I want to take this patient to the inpatient department to complete the admission procedures. Emergency inpatients. That's right. There are no more patients left, you can leave work now. Immediately after, she and Dai Lin walked towards the elevator with Lin Yen. Watching the two of them leave, the round-faced nurse walked over and said, So, Sister Zheng, are we off work? Why do you keep staring at Dr. Gao? Nurse Sheng looked at Gao Heian and Dai Lin as they got into the elevator. After the elevator door slowly closed, she said, I used to work in the emergency department, so I have a close relationship with her sister, Dr. Gao Menghua. Dr. Gao Menghua, she and Vice Dean Yin were almost getting married back then, but as a result. So Vice Dean Yin still takes care of Dr. Gao Heian like this now. Dr. Gao Menghua is still unconscious and hospitalized. Most doctors say that it is almost impossible for Dr. Gao Menghua to wake up. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Duty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Is here. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 is here. How could a doctor from the evil ghost department be on duty in a regular ward? Ghosts are currently divided into 4 levels. Ghost, vengeful spirit, fierce ghost, and ferocious spirit. And evil ghosts belong to a special type of fierce ghosts, which is a separate department established. At this moment, he remembered Dr. Huaping from Li Gui's surgery, who had said that both the doctors in the Department of Grievance and Li Gui had a high loss rate, so the department director sent them to attend the job fair to select some good candidates. It seems that the doctors in the department are suffering from more severe injuries than he imagined, and even require doctors from the Department of Evil Spirits to be on duty. Hello, Dr. Zhao. I had an afternoon outpatient meeting with Dr. Gao Heian today. I haven't seen him directly from the outpatient department yet. Ghosts, right? At the beginning, as an intern, you didn't have the chance to go to the outpatient room at all. It should be a resident physician who has this opportunity. It will give you more insights in the future. Later, Zhao Amnesty handed Dai Lin a can of coffee and said, there are still many dangers to be encountered while on duty in the inpatient department. You are just an intern doctor, so you can hide behind us. You should prioritize your studies now, and don't try to push yourself forward. Thank you. Gao Heian's personality is very cold, don't you think she can handle it? Zhao Amnesty asked this question, and before Dai Lin could answer, he said to himself, her sister used to be the top surgeon in our hospital's emergency department, and her brother in law was one of the 3 vice deans. Vice Dean Yin. Yes, Vice Dean Yin Wuqi is her brother in law. That is to say, Vice Dean Yin asked his sister in law to personally take care of him as an intern doctor, which clearly had the intention of attracting cultivation. Dai Lin looked out the hospital window. He still had no idea what was going on in this dark void and how such a hospital could have been born. Are these the ghost eyes? At this moment, Zhao Amnesty's face suddenly moved to Dai Lin's face, carefully examining his eyes. Dai Lin was taken aback and asked, Dr. Zhao, you? Never mind, I didn't say anything. Zhao Amnesty walked to his seat, sat down, and glanced at Dai Lin. Those ghostly eyes. The cursed object implanted in oneself is indeed very unusual. Otherwise, how could Yin Wuqing be so polite to oneself? At the same time, Lin Yan, wearing a hospital gown and lying on the hospital bed, felt increasingly flustered at this moment. She kept covering her chest, her face becoming increasingly ugly. Lin Yan had a strange premonition she's coming. That ghost. Doctor's duty room. The intercom of Long Yuan, the attending physician of the grievance surgery department, rang. Dr. Long, a woman's voice came from the walkie-talkie, I am the head nurse on duty, Li Lin. What's going on? Tonight was very unusual. The nurse stood on the way to the stairwell, and I couldn't see any ghosts wandering around tonight. It was a bit calm and abnormal. But after checking, we didn't find any traces, and the curse didn't trigger any reaction. But I still feel uneasy and hope to send a duty doctor to check. No ghosts. What Dai Lin currently knows is that so-called ghosts are generally ghosts that have no harm to humans. They generally wander around the world for various reasons, but do not take human lives. This kind of ghost can be expelled by any nurse, there's nothing scary at all. But tonight, there was no ghost. Instead, it seemed a bit abnormal. "Nurse Lee, where are you now?" "I'm in the stairwell on the 5th floor." "Okay, I understand. You guys come back first, and we'll send someone over." At the same time, Dai Lin's left eye began to transmit a sharp pain. At this moment, he realized. That female ghost is here. At the same time, a strong will is transmitted from the right eye, prompting Dai Lin to pass. Then, "Xiao Lu, go over." Long Yuan was about to command the doctor to go and check when Zhao Amnesty suddenly stood up. "Dr. Long, let me go." Long Yuan was taken aback for a moment and said, "Dr. Zhao. Why bother you to personally go to this small matter?" "Dr. Long, you're right," Zhao Amnesty waved his hand and said, "I'm sitting here and my legs are a bit numb. It's just a good time to go out and move around. I'm really sorry about that. It's rare for you to come and help us shift." "It's okay, I'll go out and take a look and come back." At this moment, he looked at Dai Lin and said, Xiao Dai, why don't you come with me? I think you really want to go out for a walk with me." Long Yuan nodded and said, "Okay, Xiao Dai, it's good for you to go out with Dr. Zhao and gain more knowledge. If you follow Dr. Zhao closely, it will be absolutely safe. Currently, most of the patients on the 5th floor are cursed by ordinary vengeful spirits, and Dr. Zhao is in the department of evil ghosts. If you come forward, it can be said that he is more than enough. Dr. Long, you just can tell the truth." Haha. Then, Zhao Amnesty and Dai Lin left the duty room one after another. After arriving at the position of the nurse station, Nurse Manager Lee was surprised to see that Zhao Amnesty had come in person and said, "Dr. Zhao. Why did you come in person?" Zhao Zong waved his hand and said, "Don't be too grateful to me, Nurse Lee. If the curses displayed in the hallway don't react too much, it shouldn't be a big deal. I'll come out and take a walk." As for Dai Lin, the nurses simply ignored him. Zhao Zong and Dai Lin walked to the corner of the corridor ahead. Zhao Zong lifted his left hand and looked through his fingers, saying, It's a bit strange. There isn't even a ghost here. Xiao Dai, remember to follow me closely." Dai Lin nodded and said, "Yes, Dr. Zhao. It's probably less than 100 meters from here to the stairwell. In this section, many spells are arranged. Defending against ghosts can be said to be more than enough, ensuring that they cannot leave this corridor at all and can only linger here. Even if it is a resentful spirit, it generally cannot break through the defense. Even if it does, the head nurse can handle one or two and wait for the doctor to provide support. Strange, it wasn't like this an hour ago." Later, Zhao Amnesty seemed to have thought of something and looked at Dai Lin. "Is it because Dr. Gao has just admitted a patient to the hospital?" Before Dai Lin could answer, Zhao Amnesty took a step and said, Yes, you're just an intern. So, Xiao Dai, please tell me that the more detailed the medical history of this newly admitted patient, the better. The doctors here mainly complain about the Department of Psychiatry, and Zhao Zong came to help on duty temporarily. However, he also has some knowledge about the Department of Psychiatry. Dai Lin nodded and told Zhao Amnesty in detail about Lin Yan's medical history, saying, "This Miss Lin's situation is like this. 20 years. Such a long medical history." Zhao Amen's face became somewhat playful. "I can't have already become a ghost, can I? But I am a doctor in the evil ghost department, not in the ghost department, and I cannot draw conclusions hastily." End of this chapter.